Okay.
It wasn't expected, but thank you for giving that chance. Actually, it was really cool, because I think anybody that asked a question, there's probably 100 other people that have that same question. So great to be given that opportunity to unpack some of our thinking and where we're focused.
Yeah, well, and it was really, I think it proved the type of organization you are. And we had a great conversation yesterday about how that really comes from the top down, from Steve and Brad, about how open they are. And I've seen it myself, which will relate back to our last question later with some of the other execs. But why don't we take it off, because I know you've got a tight schedule.
Sure.
And I apologize, everyone. I'm going to be doing a bit of reading here because we have some prepared questions. I did my best to try and get content from the community and try to phrase these questions around the types of things that I think most of the people in the community want to know. Of course, it's coming from my own language and my own verbiage, so bear with us, guys. So the first question I have here is that I want to thank you again, as I said earlier, for responding to all the lead-up questions that were posted on Facebook. Many of us in the community were truly impressed that you would actually take the time in your evening to come in and loop in all the people. And some of them were really valid questions, but there was also, there was a little bit of trolls out there, a little bit of people that were not constructive. They weren't trying to move the ball forward, and I think you guys handled that really well. And I guess the real question here is what inspires you guys to go above and beyond? And I know we talked a little bit about this yesterday. It is, I guess, part of the corporate culture, but it's also part of you. So what is it that makes you want to do more than you have to do?
I don't know how you define what more than you have to do is, but we're building software to deliver on our mission, which is to power prosperity around the world. And we are a customer-backed organization, which means we get feedback from customers, and that's how we build our products.
Right.
And you've heard that a lot today at Get Connected Calgary, of how much literally is like customer feedback helping us prioritize and even design. And so, you putting questions out is just like, hey, that's another way to make sure that we're investing in the community, and the community's investing back in us by creating transparency. So it started with Scott from the very beginning, spending time with customers and building customer back, and he has just injected it throughout our organization.
Right. But I guess the question is, I guess what I'm really trying to get to is, you're an exceptional leader.
Thank you.
Are these characters innate? Are they nurtured? I mean, we talked a little bit about having coaching, and so are there ways for the average Joe to become an outstanding leader?
I think I've developed as a leader over time. I was 15 years at HP. HP did a really nice job on leadership development. I went to Apple. I got a lot of different leadership experience from a very different company, right? Different culture. And then coming into it, I feel like I learned more in 1 year about leadership than I did in the 15 years or 17 years preceding that. In many ways, it's who you surround yourself with, and where you get your information from. So I'm an avid book reader. I surround myself with people that are smarter than me. That's not hard to do. And we've just got great role models to look up to. And so I'm a product of that, but I also believe, especially seeing the impact of leaders like Brad Smith and Scott Cook, that it's important for us to be the best leaders we can be, because we have such a big amplifier effect, not only on our employers, but on the society around us.
Right, absolutely. So I guess to dive back into the product a little bit, there were some tough questions on there, and one of the things we hear back from the community is there's always a lot of desires for what they'd like to see in the product. How does the team decide what are the product's improvements that they're going to work on, and how you prioritize what the dev team will work on?
Sure. Well, there's a variety of different ways, and there's quite a bit of like short-term tactics we use, and then there's kind of longer-term tactics.
Right.
Shorter term, there's the ability in the product to be able to provide feedback. So we use that quite a bit. That goes directly to our engineering teams.
Right.
We look at why people are calling us for care. So, okay, we failed if they had to call us. So how can we improve experiences through that? So that's a very data-back approach. We get the product recommender score and net promoter score. So we get verbatim feedback from that. And so we use that. So those are our three big kind of meaty ways of getting data in. And then we spend time with customers, whether that be the Facebook groups or doing things like rapid prototyping, what we're doing in the other room, where people can actually help shape the design by using paper and pen. So those are kind of like our shorter term, like these are what guide that kind of shorter term roadmap. And then there's this other element of being able to kind of look beyond today and saying, gosh, if this is the problem and we can fall in love with the problem, how could the technology of tomorrow help fix that problem today?
Right.
And so that's like thinking about like, man, if we connected, books with like work papers and through to tax, what would you be able to do if that data just flowed? And like, oh, that could enable insights. Well, what would you need to do to enable this insight? Well, you would need a large amount of data. You would need user cases. You would need machine learning. And so those things you have to think a bit ahead of the curve, much like Apple would. But it starts with just falling in love with the problem and thinking ahead, saying, hey, what's coming down the pipe that would enable us to solve that problem even better? And so it's the balance of the like short-term tactics, solving for what we need to do today, while also keeping an eye to the future and putting a certain amount of resources towards kind of shaping that.
Yeah, I love that it's falling in love with the problem. I think that's such a great approach.
Yeah.
Because I have a tendency to fall in love with the tech, not the problem.
Yeah.
But I guess moving on here, one of the other questions came up around third-party apps. You guys have had a major announcement with the acquisition of T-Sheets. We're seeing WagePoint now integrated into advanced payroll here in Canada.
Yeah.
How do you guys decide what third-party apps that you want to bring into the main part of the platform and or acquire? I know it's a tough one.
Yeah. There's a couple different perspectives. We look at the overall workflow and where are the areas that the majority of small businesses and accounting professionals are going to interface with the offering, and if it's big problems, and that we identify that a tighter integration will help save even more time or enable you to get more money back or give you more confidence, those are the areas that we really are focusing.
Right.
While at the same time, the beauty of the platform, much like the iPhone, is that it gets stronger with the more apps and even niche cases that are solved by third-party apps. So there's a balance of knowing what's core and solving what's core, while also stimulating this environment where people are innovating and adding and strengthening the app.
Yeah.
What we found is we've had a lot of failures with acquisitions, and so increasingly what we're doing is we'll embrace a partner, we'll look at, hey, what if we integrated you even further? We'll get to know their technology better, we get to know their culture better, and then if it's solving a big enough problem, then we say, hey, maybe this is one where we should just be fully integrated. And so that's in part been shaping how we're thinking about how we integrate with partners and then whom might make sense for future acquisitions.
Right.
Does that answer the question?
It does. I think what everyone wants to know is, are you going to acquire
who's next?
Yeah. But I'm not going to ask you that question. I'll be fair here.
That's wise of you.
Well, because I think the answer would be, I'm not telling you.
Yeah.
So we've got a little bit of an out there question here just to mix things up. So I'd like you to tell me something that's true that nobody agrees with you on.
Oh, I don't know. You could ask my wife that. She'd come up with lots of things that she doesn't agree on. One of the areas that I've struggled with, I know I'm not quite answering your question perfectly, but getting banks to agree to prioritize opening up APIs, that's been like 3 years of pushing and pushing and pushing, because initially they just didn't get it. It was like, oh, it's our data. Why would you give us our data? And it's like, no, you are stewards of data, and the right thing for customers.
Actually, your customers' data.
Yeah, and it's like, it's just a fundamentally different mindset. Like the conversation, we're like, shh. But over time, we're getting more aligned to that line of thinking, and then kind of once we got aligned with that, then we're able to say, okay, how might we work together, and what's the right way to do this, and so that's been, we're not like fully there with everybody, but gosh, it's come a long way in 3 years, and it's taken that persistence of like knowing, like passionately, this is the right thing to do, and having the persistence to work through it.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to give you a bit of a pass because I think there's a lot of us that agree with you on that, but I'll give you a pass on that question. So one of the other things that you hear me say all the time is I love the culture, I love the people.
Yeah.
How does Intuit as an organization attract and retain such great people?
Yeah, well, that's part of the DNA. We use a framework we call True North, which starts with thinking short and long. So we always want to make decisions today that when we move on, the people behind us will say, I'm so glad that they made those investments because it set us up for the future. So there's the short and long. But it's employees first, then customers, then partners, then shareholders. And there's lots of data that says that's the way you should do it. That's another area that I often get conflict with leaders of customers versus employees first. Right. Feel passionately employees first. There's two primary ways we measure that. Everything we do is measured. And there's two primary ways we look at it, which is our employee engagement survey, our pulse survey, and our and Great Place to Work. And so those give us a kind of a barometer of how we're doing for people. And so the short answer is by focusing on delivering an awesome environment for your people, they go out and bring in more great people.
Yeah.
And so part of it is that, like connecting with people, not just their wallet, but connecting their hearts, enabling them to connect with people around other things that are outside of their day jobs. It could be religion, could be environment, like it could be women in tech. We create these networks for people to connect around those. Right. And so you don't just come into the office to solve a problem. You come into the office because you are surrounded by other people that you have friendships with and common passions. Mm-hmm. And that creates an energy and a stickiness and a level of engagement that you can't get without that. But we've also, over the last years, we've been studying other companies to see how do they assess for awesome coming in. And so we
assess for awesome.
Assess for awesome. That's what we call it. We call A for A. And our process is that we have prospects actually demonstrate their craft. So they come in, they talk about whom they are, like about them. Tell us about you as a person, because we're hiring you as a person. Mm-hmm. Your experience comes with it, but we're hiring you as a person. Right. And then they talk about experience where they've done projects that are kind of in the same zip code, right? And then they actually have to do case where they have to show that they can do the job. Yeah. And we use our employees, like the best people we've got, assessing that, and then we try to make a decision right away from that. So it starts with employees that are engaged, attracting, and then using kind of defined processes to help make sure that you're only bringing in the best people. Right. And analyzing them. And analyzing it on craft, yeah. And then the last thing I'd say is that pulse survey that I told you about, or the engagement survey. I sat down with some of our sales teams, and they said, "Oh, it's about the people." And I'm like, "Okay, what does that mean?" Like, yay, but what does that mean? Yeah,
it's a motherhood statement, right?
Well, you can't really do anything with that, right? And so staying at that level is not really helpful. And so it's like, tell me, like, what does that really mean? Like, when you say we hire great people, what does that mean? And they said, well, it's because when we hire people that aren't just good at doing the task. They have a passion that will make Intuit better. Right. And so we hire people that want to make a better environment, and that's what they mean by we hire great people. Yeah.
And so you're hiring for a higher calling.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. And I thought, okay, yeah, I like that. That makes sense. Yeah.
Excellent. So I guess one of the other things I've noticed about the leadership team is that for example, Fudge has now taken on a new role, and many of the people in the organization move around the organization. Yeah. Is that a conscious decision? And if so, why?
Yeah. It's absolutely conscious, and then there's a bit of career pathing and saying, hey, how do we help you continue to develop as a leader and have a maximum impact? Brad Smith has gone through each of the business units. Sasan has now, I think he came in ProTax, then he did, when we had a banking division, he did banking, he did TurboTax, now QuickBooks. Our HR used to be our legal counsel. Like everybody has been moved around, and the reason we do that is because it helps build a more holistic, well-rounded leadership team that understands multiple facets and can help guide the company. And if anything, we ever had an outage, we always have a strong leadership team that can help kind of guide us to our future. In some cases, again, it's because it's like, hey, how do we continue to give you new opportunities to get new experiences? Right. And it's amazing. I believe our biggest durable advantage as Intuit will be as we connect our services and our data and our customer sets with each other.
Yeah.
Like QBSE to TurboTax, or QuickBooks Tax to QuickBooks. That's where we can do things that nobody else can do. And by moving leaders around, they get a deep understanding of the problem on the other side. And so when you move them to the other side, like, oh, I understand this problem. Wow, we could bring these together.
Right.
And it's been
They get better insights.
Better insights and a more of a passion to solve it and break down barriers between groups. And it's been massive.
Yeah, because in large organizations, that silo issue is a real problem.
Especially when you have geographic silos on top of that.
Yeah.
You can get that even more.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess the next question is sort of about the skill sets of leaders. So what do you think are the 3 most important skills in a leader in your leadership team?
Yeah, I look at attitude first and foremost. Do you have a fit for our company? I look at passion to learn. Right, we are a learning culture where we are like shameless about, hey, if Amazon does something better than us, like that's where we partially got A4A from.
Right.
We just are constantly looking at who is best and how can we take those ideas and morph it for the benefit of our customers. So that learning, and then this mashup of like humbleness and yet confidence. Right,
we are googliness, right?
I don't know.
Someone explained that to me when I was in San Jose, that googliness is an actual term.
Huh. I have heard it.
I can't do it justice.
If that's what it is, then I get it. But there's just like this amount of like, we're a humble company, and it keeps us in a learning mindset. But at the same time, you want the confidence and the boldness to be willing to like say, hey, no, I know we need to do this, and like drive.
Yeah.
And so it's this balance of like humbleness and boldness
and
courage.
Together. And I see that. I mean,
courage.
And
yeah.
I like big props to Chris Fudge for taking the initiative in moving into the role for support, which is a difficult role to move into.
Yeah.
And I see that across the board. I mean, that's just one example of courage within your organization, but you see it time and time again.
Yeah.
Of people having the courage to have the tough conversations like you did on Facebook, having the courage to try new initiatives, and I think that's something that I look up to you guys for.
Oh, thank you.
And it inspires me, and I'm sure it inspires many of the other people that are hopefully watching right now.
Thank you.
So excellent. The other thing that I noticed as I trolled social media was a recent post about an innovation catalyst training. What exactly is that, and why is it important?
Well, the core ways we look at innovation at the company starts with something we call CDI, customer-driven innovation. And again, this was kind of led by Scott. So we look at like big problems we can solve that we, or now others we enable, can solve, that is durable, right? If it's a big problem, if it's a small problem, don't bother. If it's a big problem, take it on. If it's something that we can handle well, it's in our area, or somebody else is doing it, we can help them, great. But if it's something that can be replicated easily and somebody else can solve the problem, then don't bother. So we look at the intersection of those 3 things. Right. Big problem, we can solve, that's durable, we look at that. And then once we've identified the problem, then we look at how do we get deep empathy for the problem? This is that fall in love with the problem.
Right.
And then we go out and we spend time with customers and we look at how are you solving that problem today or not? Where are you struggling? And then we go broad on oh, how could we solve that? What are the different ways? Brainstorm. There's different tools we use for that. And then we narrow down and we pick that one area where we're going to focus on, and then we go broad again, and then we go narrow. And so that process that we use all the way through to rapid prototyping is somewhat new for people coming into our culture. And so the innovation catalyst is kind of like black belt if you think of the Six Sigma.
Yeah.
They are peaked on the processes. So if a leader says, hey, I've got this problem that I want to go after, I've identified it's a big problem, it's at the sweet spot, but I need help running sessions or pulling customers in or just thinking through the processes, then you pull in an innovation catalyst or 2, and they can help drive that innovation process. And so the short of it is, it's all in service to picking big things that we can innovate around and acing for customers. The innovation catalysts are there to help make that even easier to use the processes that are core to how we solve for customers.
Excellent. I think it's a great initiative. So I guess I've got a bit of another outside the box question for you here. Can you tell us about a time when you almost gave up, how you felt about that, and what you did instead of giving up?
You want a personal one or a business one, or?
Let's try a personal one now.
All right. Well, I'm a runner, so I've done, I don't know how many marathons now. The last marathon I did was Boston, which ended in kidney stones.
So that doesn't sound fun.
No, but well, actually that was the worst part now that I think about it. But I did a bunch of stupid things before the race, things that like you just no ordinary person wouldn't have done. Anyways, I was running and I was like, I looked like I was going to break 3 hours, which I've never done before. I'm like, I'm in Boston, 3 hours. And my goal was 3:22. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm doing so well. You know, the faster I go, the quicker it's done. Yeah. And then about like
kidney stones.
And then about mid 30s, my fuel belt, which is a brand new fuel belt, don't do that. I couldn't find my fuel. I'm like, oh crap, I've lost it. And at that time, psychologically, I'm like, oh crap, now I'm kind of out of my groove. Oh. But I was still way ahead of my time, and so I started slowing down, and because I had time. And anyways, I got to about 40K. My vision went in. I remember staggering. I remember looking at a cop thinking, like, you should be smart enough to stop me, because clearly I am not. But in my mind, it was like, well, I'm not going to stop. Like, I know what my vision is. I know what I need to get done, and I'll just keep going. Right. I ended up waking up in the medical tent.
Oh, no.
I don't actually still remember getting over the finish line.
Did you get over the finish?
So apparently, yes.
Yeah.
So they kept on saying, no, you did. You came in from that side.
You came in from that side?
But the proof point was I had a Garmin watch. I also bought a new Garmin watch.
GPS track.
And the data showed, when I crossed.
And what was your time?
3:22.
3:22?
Yeah.
It's amazing how your body does what your mind tells it to.
I guess, yeah. So that was definitely a don't give up. Probably to the detriment of my body. Yeah. But yeah.
I thought you were maybe going to share your story about your triathlon and swimming.
That's my next one. Yeah. So after that, now I switched to triathlons because I feel like I'm less likely to damage myself. But I've done the one as you know back in September, and there were moments of like I'm going to be at the bottom of this lake. But, anyways,
you made it.
I've got the next one coming up in June, and the beauty of that is I came out of that one and I'm like, okay, that was an awesome experience, and I know I can do better. What's the next one? Yeah. And so I'm excited for that.
Awesome. So now switching back, I guess, to the product and the industry. So I'm a big believer in the cloud. However, adoption, even within my own client base and across Canada, seems to be a little bit slower than I personally anticipated. When do you think it will be? When will we start hitting the adoption rates like 40, 60, 70%? Well, when will we cross that chasm?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, in many ways, small businesses are already there. I think about 7 out of 10. Well, so about first time in years, we have data saying now that the financial management category is growing in years. And so that's great, and I attribute some of the stuff we've been doing around advertising is helping to make that happen, and SEO, search engine, focusing more on helping people understand how there's solutions to problems, which then brings them into the technology, while also focusing on connecting more people to accountants. Those are like the 3 big things I'd say that we've done to help grow the category. But then 7 out of 10, from what we can tell, will choose QuickBooks. And of those 7 out of 10, 7 out of 10 will use QuickBooks Online. Okay. So small business already is choosing cloud, and if they're not choosing us, then they're predominantly choosing another cloud solution. Right. And so the small businesses that are starting, they're already just naturally starting.
Yeah, it's just all the archived or the historic companies
that
aren't shifting.
And even that, over time, we continue to see a high percentage of QBO is migrator. Like anywhere from 30 to 35%, depending on the quarter, will be migrators coming over. Okay. And of course, there's lots of reasons why they're coming over, but it's usually the pain's got to be big enough of like, hey, I need to have mobile access, or my accountant's telling me to. That's creating creating the need for them to want to make a change. Yeah. Otherwise, they really don't want to touch their accounting software.
They absolutely don't.
Yeah, exactly.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
That's
right.
It's
the philosophy out here over and over again.
So the small businesses, I think, are like largely there. It's just, some will stay where they are, but many will move as they start to understand the benefits and have the right compelling action to kind of get them to go. It's the accounting industry that has been on this curve, right? Yeah. And you'll probably be surprised that not all of accountants or bookkeepers share your same passion for ahead of the curve, taking risks on technology. But I think probably 2 years ago, maybe just over a year ago, we kind of crossed the chasm right? We've gone from like early innovators to the early adopters. We are now absolutely in the early majority, even like bumping up against late majority. And the difference is just, are they at the, oh, I'm moving my whole cloud to the practice, or are they at the, oh, if a client wants it, I'll support it.
Right.
We're getting close to being beyond the, no, it's not ready, I won't even take it, go do desktop.
Yeah.
We're getting past that fairly quick, in large part because the small businesses are like, no, I've already chosen QBO.
Yeah.
So, and I need mobile access, and I want to be able to do these things, and I want to have real-time access to reports. And so it in part is kind of priming the accounting industry to move faster and like learning and getting comfortable.
Yeah, it's definitely a small business pushing the accountants, as I think it has in a lot of ways.
But then you see the early innovators and the early adopters, and others are looking across saying, oh, okay, well if they've done it, I can do it too. And that is the beauty of events like this.
Yeah.
Get Connected Calgary, we're doing Vancouver, Toronto, is it's bringing the whole industry together for different people along the different spectrum of technology adoption.
Yeah.
And just being able to learn from each other and feeling a support network and knowing that there's things like the Facebook groups, like QBO and Quincy and QBHQ, that they can lean on.
Yes.
And that just gives a social support mechanism that you will never get the adoption without that being there.
Yeah, and I can certainly attest to that myself, how important that is, how lonely it can feel to be out there on your own trying to do it, and maybe try to do things differently than things have been done in the past, and to have an entire community. And you feel like you're part of a family.
Yeah, you're part of a tribe.
Yeah, you're part of a tribe, absolutely. Yeah. So again, looking specifically at QBO here, if you were sitting here a year from now, and I know this is a tough question because you guys hate talking about what's coming down the line, but if we were sitting here 12 months from now, what have you and your team accomplished?
We actually love talking about what's coming down the line. We just can't.
Yes.
And it's more that we develop in an agile environment, which means we can move as we learn from customers and new things pop up. And so we never want to disappoint somebody by saying, hey, it's going to be this date, and it gets moved out. Of course, as you get closer to the date, we feel more comfortable doing that. The core areas we're focused on. So a Canadian team that's focused on developing for Canada, right? Largely in Edmonton and Mississauga. And then we have thousands of other developers around the world developing kind of core QBO. The areas that our Canadian teams are focused on is predominantly sales tax and payroll. Those are our two big ones. We've said, hey, we're gonna ace these.
Right.
And so by the end of this year, we will have made solid improvements on giving choice on payroll with advanced payroll and online payroll, and feeling really good about both products delivering on core. And then and by that time we'll be looking at, and now where do we go to help provide even more services like time, fully integrated time tracking and things like that.
Well, and that sort of leads us to our next question. Is so we start stretching that horizon.
Yeah.
But this might be an easier one for you to talk about because it's a little bit more subjective.
Yeah.
And looking 10 years down the road.
Yeah.
What are the innovations? What are the technologies? Will blockchain actually be part of the Intuit product? Will it be a thing that everyone's using? So being a bit of a futurist here and looking down.
Yeah. So there's a number of things. One, you can already see us putting the building blocks in place for the accounting workflow, right? It's clean data in, mobile access to data so you can quickly stay up to date on the most recent data, streamlining the mundane out of bookkeeping, and now we're looking to extend that through to tax, right? Which is still a very post-mortem environment. So now that same revolutionary element of cloud we will bring to tax. And when we connect all of those, now you can apply machine learning to that and artificial intelligence, which will enable scenario planning and trends, benchmarking. But then you'll be able to do insights. Yeah. And that's not trivial. It will be really hard to ace that. But the more that we can in particular arm the accounting professional and say, hey, we don't know the psyche of your client. We don't know if they're looking to retire or that they're risk adverse, or we won't know that stuff. But we can say other clients, other businesses like that are doing the following things to get better outcomes.
Right.
And we can put that in the hands of the accounting professional, and the accounting professional can look at that and go, yeah, that's good advice or it's bad advice, right? If we try to ace that for a small business, we'll fail. And the problem is if you fail multiple times, people just say, yeah, I can't trust the system.
Yeah, but it'll be AI, so you'll say good advice, bad advice, yes, no, and it'll learn from that, right?
For sure, for sure. But the importance is that you put it in the hands of those that can decipher that and learn how to package and communicate it. And so I'm really excited about where we're going. But there's a ton of work to do there, and I'm really excited about where technology will take us. But first you put the building blocks in, you get data structured, solve the problems, and then you can build these others. The second is conversational UI. I'm super excited about conversational UI.
Like Chata?
Chata, yeah, and you can see what we're doing with
Assist.
QB Assist. The reason why is it's really hard as a software developer to make those choices of words.
Yeah.
You're going to use.
What's the intent out of this
when
language?
you're solving all of these different problems for different people.
Yeah.
Right? Scott Cook says this all the time. It's like it's pretty hard to find a software offering that solves that's used to solve so many different problems.
Yeah.
So it's really, really complex. But what conversational user interface allows you to do is not have to choose what word you use.
Yeah.
You can morph it.
Yeah.
And so now you can solve for multiple different people, one. And two, you can just focus on what answers do you need, and you no longer have to design experiences like helping them figure out how to get there. They just need to know what question they've got.
Yeah.
And we can strip away all of the work required to get there by just giving you the answer. And so that will be absolutely revolutionary.
Right. And I love the idea of actually it coming back to you and saying, well, you've asked this question, here's some other questions you might want to ask that you haven't thought of, right?
Yeah, that will be the next layer of insights. First is to answer the problem, and then say, it's like Amazon right now. We'll say, hey, you bought this, but
Maybe
here's some other things, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That is the evolution of the technology. Strip out time, enable things you couldn't do before, insights, and then go beyond the insights. That's the evolution of where we'll go. And then you said blockchain. Yeah, blockchain's fascinating, and it will revolutionize our worlds for sure. Accounting industry just is ripe to be disrupted by that. I think what we'll see is in a world that's got a lot of regulations and government, it will be hard to make monumental changes wholesale. Because it could, right? It could completely change how we do accounting. It can change auditing processes like completely.
We could have triple entry accounting.
You could. And so I think what you'll see more is using blockchain to solve specific problems.
Right.
Like, for example, currency, right? We're seeing that now. And so we'll see like specific usages of blockchain to solve problems. And then that's where even in the next 5 years where you'll see blockchain play a role.
Yeah. When I was being down in New York for the media event that they had, and seeing it as in some of its simplest forms, just as a wallet, a form of tracking pieces of information that you could ultimately share. I could see that as being some low-hanging fruit where we might just see come into play.
Yeah.
But I know we're starting to run a little bit short on time, so I'll just leave it with a couple last out there questions. So first of all, if you were a superhero, what would your superpower be?
Gosh, I wish I could fly, but no, that one's not really an option. I love to solve problems. I get so much energy from it. It drives my wife nuts at times when apparently I'm just supposed to be listening. But I love solving problems. That's what I really get off on. And so that ability to ask the right questions and focus on like helping solve problems. That's where I get my energy from. Have you ever done the Simon Sinek getting to your why?
Yeah.
That's my archetype is problem solver.
Problem solver.
Yeah.
Yes, and you solving a lot of problems for our community, and we appreciate that. So one last out there, which I'll give you a little bit of a background on this story. I think you might have heard this, but I'm not sure if everyone else has heard this story.
Oh boy.
And it goes back to Connect and also about the culture of your organization. When I was down at Connect last year, I did the hackathon. So I normally am at these events. I'm out late, up early, but tack on a hackathon before that. My mind wasn't perfect. There's a little bit of sleep deprivation there. And Sasan was moving from his presentation down the hall to another event. and I wanted to see if I could grab his attention, and I intended to say, "Are you crazy busy right now? Can I ask you a question?"
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the only words that came out of my mouth were, "Are you crazy?" And he just sort of looks at me like, "Am I crazy?" "Yeah, I'm crazy." I was like, "Okay." And a lot of what I got out of that thing was being a little bit crazy is a great thing.
Yeah.
So if we were to rate your level of craziness on a scale of 1 to 10, how crazy are you?
Oh man, I don't know how to answer that question. I think, you know, as leaders, you have to be a bit crazy, at least to be able to pick the battles you pick and the problems you're going to solve and thinking ahead of the curve. And so I'd like to think that I have purpose, and that where I apply craziness, it's to that. But gosh, if you ever saw some of the things that we do around the house to try to make sure that Manchester United scores a goal, you would absolutely think I'm crazy. So
You think you can control the television?
I don't know about the rating. I guess it's applied. Craziness is applied in different areas in my life.
Yes. Well, and you do also jump out of planes, right? So
yeah. There's a bit of that too.
There's a bit of that too. So I'm looking for a number here, though. I'm going to hold you to it. I'm an accountant, right? I need a score.
I'd put myself a 7 out of 10 on crazy.
A 7 out of 10.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to join us and speak with the community. It's really been an honor, and I think you are a shining example of what a great culture Intuit is. And thank you again for everything you're doing for the entire community.
My pleasure, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak. I appreciate it. Cool.
My pleasure. Now, the fun part is getting off all these different things. I wish there was a button you could just press to cancel all your live feeds. You should invent an app for that.
It's not too late.